Welcome to the Pit Stop Ranch, and on this video we continue to play with auto body paint on the patio. This iteration we're playing with high build primer and putting it on all the stuff that needed a little more attention on the bodywork field. Come along and watch us as we go ahead and once again change the color of these panels. Alright, so it's morning at the beginning of the weekend, and my goal at the end of the weekend is to have as much as possible in the high build primer. So I got my little pen and paper. I'm going to sit down and make a quick list of all the little things that I need to get done before I can start putting paints down. But here's kind of a quick list that I just So the Santa Ana winds are starting to softly blow through. If you're not familiar, it's a wind that comes out of the northeast, out of the Great Basin and across the Mojave Desert and down the passes and around the mountains down into this region. It's a warm, dry wind, and it is the primary inclement weather we have in the wintertime around these parts. Now right now it's a gentle breeze that isn't too warm. It is very dry, and it dries everything out as it goes by. Small part of me was fantasizing about having all of the minor little paint prep things that I needed to do or wanted to get done, and then I would be able to go ahead and squirt this afternoon the high build primer. But with this breeze coming up, I don't think that's going to be the case. Joys of back patio paint jobs is you're definitely at the whim of Mother Nature. When cleaning up your scrapers, I find that some brake clean does a great job. Acetone works as well, which is a lot cheaper, but this stuff in the convenient spray can does a marvelous job of cleaning up, good as new. And the nice thing is, like, if you wait till it dries and try and crack it off, there's always some gummy stuff, and then you try and scrape it and then you get all sorts of nicks in the edge. This way you don't get any nicks in the edge. Something I always do, and one can argue it gets me in trouble, is I always mix up a little too much, because it's always better to have too much body filler than not enough. Except my grandmother, who survived the Great Depression, grew up during the Great Depression, became an adult during the Great Depression. Her voice is always in the back of my head, and it's always about waste and how someday you'll regret it or wished you had it. So I get a little bit of schmutz left over, and so I go through and I hit stuff like this real quick, maybe making more work for myself than necessary, because though there are little low spots in these places, the fact of the matter is the high build primer was more than enough to take care of it. But what did I do? I went in and took that last little bit that was on the scraper, and there you go. So I'm going to have to touch all those areas, making a little more work for myself. But what you're going to do, you know? It's only going to end up dust on the ground, but this is our last fender to sand. Now these sanding discs are the sanding discs that you put on our DA sander, and you know, the adhesive back and everything. And This is actually a brand new one. Now you can be real cheap and you sort of use them. What happens is you wear out the edges, but the middle's still good. So a lot of times after you get done, you get it to the edge isn't cutting very well, you just peel it off, fold it in half, and you got a good piece of sandpaper. I have these Dura block sanding blocks, and they're really nice, and they do a nice job of creating a flat surface. But when you're sanding, see, this has got pretty low crown to it, but it's still complex shape, and you see all of the dust is getting all this is the simple contact here, so it's creating a lot of pressure right there, so it's just going to remove a lot of material. With these 50 style fenders, just sandpaping with your hand is I think the best course of action. And so I found if you take these adhesive backed discs and do that, then you got a really good piece of sandpaper that's a convenient size and shape, really. I was surprised how useful having a round edge and a straight edge is. And now you can more easily conform. And since you don't need much pressure, I've already blown through there, you don't need much pressure in order to do it, because the big thing about this step here is, since this isn't high build primer, this around here is, but this isn't high build primer, the idea is just to knock down any little nubs and create surface or a tooth for the high build primer that I'm going to shoot on it here shortly to bite. So that said, though I'm not looking to really remove a lot of material, you can see how wrinkled up this area is by taking a bit, not this far, that's too far, but taking a little bit of the material off the high side here will also help, a couple thousandths of an inch for when we put the high build on this and build this area up and then sand it down. And again, the goal is not to break through, though if you do it this step, it's not a big deal. The goal is to knock down the high spots, leaving the low spots full, though you still need to get tooth for the paint to stick in the low spots. Now everyone I watch on YouTube says how much they hate sanding. They're willing to do it because they want a good finished product, but how much they hate sanding. And I have found, much to my chagrin, I don't mind it. I find it's not something that requires a lot of effort. And it can be a little tedious, but it goes so quickly. I've heard the unfortunate saying, guys that become body men are the ones who don't mind sanding. No one actually likes to sand. At least not that I'm aware. And I think that's the difference in between a shitty body person and a good body person, is a good body person has the patience to go through all the tedious steps, sanding and prepping, where you don't know if you've been successful until you get the final coat on, whether that's clear or color coat or whatever you're doing. You don't know if you've done all the steps correctly until it's finished painted. A good job at this stage improves your chances of success when you do the final paint. Shortcuts and a poor job at this stage will probably guarantee a bad outcome on the final paint. That's all. So, and I'm working on that as faith. So, as you saw, we went through, sanded everything, and got it pretty decent. The main reason for this step is not quite happy with the body work that we did before we shot it in the red oxide. So trying to fix some of those issues by putting on a high build primer and then sanding.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to the main event. Mother Nature versus Pit Stop Ranch. Who's gonna be successful? Well, we already know the answer to that. Mother Nature always wins. Anyways, as you can see, we went ahead and pressed forward in spite of my concerns regarding the wind condition, otherwise known as Santa Ana's, and got a brief period where it's dead calm, so I decided to press forward and shoot the thing. So by the time I got all set up, of course, the wind came back, as you can tell by the flapping on the plastic on the cab, with the inevitable bugs and so forth landing into the paint. Now, my first thing I did is I went around as I hit all of the areas that needed extra special high build. Stuff that probably, arguably, maybe another round with glazed putty would have been a better choice, but instead, of course, we're trying to see if high build primer truly is basically spray on high glazed putty. Anyways, so I did 2 or 3 extra coats in the problem areas on top of the 2 or 3 coats that I put on everything else. Now, with the doors, I just simply shot the one side outward facing. I didn't shoot anything else. I didn't bother masking it either, so there's some overspray on the sides and so forth, but that'll get covered up with more red oxide when that step occurs. So, when I got done shooting everything with the first pass, everything that needed to be flipped over and shot, the other side got flipped over with the other side getting shot. And the stuff like the doors and the back panel, the back lower strip for the bed got removed, and the fenders that had already previously been shot in red oxide were then moved into position so that those could then be quickly shot as well. Now, again, with the fenders, I shot the problem areas first with 2 or 3 coats. Same with the back side, opposite sides of the beds and so forth. Now, kind of my idea was shoot the less critical sides first, and then flip over and shoot the sides you're going to see more commonly, so that if by flipping them over or whatever they get damaged, it's going to be the less visible side that gets damaged on the bed sides themselves. And it built up pretty quick. Hopefully it is good enough that we can, when we sand it, we can sand out all of the imperfections without going all the way to bare metal. Now, if we go all the way to bare metal, well, one, we've screwed up because we should stop just short of bare metal. Hopefully we get an indicator showing we're getting close, and we should, in the form of the red oxide coming through. On the fenders, at least, on the bed sides, we might just accidentally break through here. That should hopefully not be too big of a deal. Because then after everything's sanded, we will then proceed to then put the coat of red oxide on it, so everything once again is one color, and we're going to get a consistent final color when we go paint it with the color coat.
Of course, if we were to do this all over again, I would have skipped the initial red oxide step. In fact, I would have skipped red oxide altogether. And now, having worked with this high build primer, at least this particular brand of high build primer, I'm not sure how well it built up. Sanding will let us know if it accomplishes why we actually took this additional step of putting a high build on these panels. But if it's given the quality of the finish, it's a very durable, solid surface finish that just a scuff and a shoot, it would easily take color. I think there's absolutely no need for the sealer and then this. I think this is a finely sealed surface, and no problem if this had to sit like this for a short period of time. You wouldn't have to worry about rust. I think that's an important lesson. We're still, because of areas aren't going to get, we're gonna burn through this, sanding it down in areas so that we hit the red oxide primer underneath. And then furthermore, there's going to be parts of the cab and other parts that aren't going to get painted in this high build primer. So because there's going to, as a result, since there's multiple different colors, we have to get it all in one color. And I'm going to go with the red oxide, one, because I bought another gallon of it, but two, for the finish we want the darker shade of primer underneath the color coat than the lighter color primer. So we're going to hit it with red oxide, then we'll hit it with the color coat. Got sanding ahead of me, more sanding ahead of me, more primer painting ahead of me, and more, and then finally, when that's ready, color coat. And at that point there, I think we're going to have a pretty awesome truck. Anyways, thank you for following along. If you like what we're doing here at the Pit Stop Ranch and you want to get more frequent updates, follow us on Instagram at Pit Stop Ranch. That's pit_stop_ranch. If you search Pit Stop Ranch, you'll find us. And of course, if you want to support us, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And until next time, have a paint-tastic day.